DeShaun Tate back live with you here on the Final Buzzer. You guys know that we do this around 15, 20 minutes or so, recapping the last playoff game of the night. Tonight's playoff game, by the way, we had a little bit of a hiatus that we took just for a quick second. Got some things going on, but you know I can't stay away from you guys for too long talking some basketball. Lakers, number 1 seed, taking down the number 3 seed Denver Nuggets in game 4, 114-108. Now the Lakers leading 3-1 in that series. And even more so, just a little bit of information for you guys. Let me throw this out there first. I like to give a couple of my little initial thoughts. I put some of my initial thoughts out there. I always got somebody that I kind of got to apologize to from time to time, so I want to make sure that I do that. Like, I have been extremely critical of Jamal Murray. Not saying I'd said so many really things that weren't really nice necessarily, but just not really a big Jamal Murray guy. Just not really a big Jamal Murray fan. And while I can definitely respect and appreciate what he has done in this postseason, I'll really be interested to see how he picks that up and how that carries over into the playoffs for next year and even for the regular season. But I don't want to steal any thunder away from what he has been able to do up until this point. And the dude could just play some ball. And if you didn't see that play by Jamal Murray in the where were we on that one? The acrobatic reverse layup, the hand switch MJ-like play that he made late in the second quarter over LeBron James, you missed a really special treat. And he's definitely getting more than just a little bit of my respect. But there was this guy, Dwight Howard, who got his first playoff start tonight for the season anyways over JaVale McGee. And he was outstanding. You're talking about what he was able to do is specifically and especially within the first half. 11 points, 10 rebounds, went 5 for 6 from the field, and even hit a couple free throws. That ain't too shabby. This dude is not just ring chasing. He might be doing a little bit of that too. However, I really believe in what we saw out of Dwight Howard tonight. It's taken a lot of people by surprise, and I'm not saying that he's the Dwight Howard that he necessarily used to be, the old Superman guy or anything like that. I'm not saying that he's that. However, I thought that he still had quite a bit of that in the tank when he was with the Atlanta Hawks, when he was with the Washington Wizards, when he was with the Brooklyn Nets. I thought that he still had some of that, but maybe what he was lacking was those teammates. He was lacking those guys that can light a fire up under him, and that being obviously the consensus would agree that being LeBron James. So I want to give Dwight Howard some credit. But there's a couple guys who I don't want to give so much credit to. And we can start that off with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who played a little bit better tonight than we've definitely seen him in the playoffs up until this point, even throughout the duration of the regular season. But I kind of feel like it doesn't really matter what he really does throughout the remainder of the playoffs that we're going to see. I'm just not a person that would like to see him on this Lakers roster going forward, especially if you want to be trying to chase some more championships, because they need outside shooting, and they're limited to that. When Rajon Rondo is shooting better than you, that's a problem. When you're Danny Green, who's the other person I want to bring up, KCP, a really nice guy, by the way, but I can't be biased to anything like that because we going to keep it real right here on the show. I can't imagine that he'll have a roster spot after the season. Another one of those guys, like I said, Danny Green. Where in the world has this dude been at this entire time? We was talking about guys that had some things, not so nice things to say about. Well, we could start with him, a one-dimensional player, the one-trick pony. And I'm not a big fan. I probably shouldn't say one-trick pony, but that's what he's playing like. And I don't think that he would disagree with me if he's just being honest with himself. He's a specialist, and he's not even doing that right now. He's a three-point specialist. They need the shooters. You can't just have LeBron out there taking all the shots. I guess you can't just have LeBron out there taking all the shots. You're putting Anthony Davis in positions and in situations where he has to take an attempt, step back, turnaround, 3-point fadeaways, and things like that. And you are the specialist on this team. I'm not in love with that idea. And I know all of that is not between those guys' faults, but I'm just not a big fan of it. They haven't really been coming to play. They haven't been consistent at all. They're missing Avery Bradley, who's not an outstanding jump shooter, but at least he's playing defense. Their liabilities on defense, specifically being Danny Green, in that same light and in that same conversation. And you're not Ray Allen. And I'm not saying that you have to come over here and be that, but you have to play somewhat similar to that kind of role. And that's why I give the Lakers the credit that I have, because yes, while you do have, the great two of the greatest players in the NBA right now on your roster, you still are expected to bring it every night. You got the big bullseye, the big target on your back every single night, and you're highlighted by every single team, the other 29 throughout the entire NBA. And so I just think that you need to step up to the plate a little bit more and take some pressure off of those guys. I mentioned Rajon Rondo, and credit to him. Congrats to him. He exceeds Scottie Pippen for top 10, number 8, specifically on the most NBA playoff assists. So congrats to him. But he is that guy that I feel like is that unsung hero. This team has looked significantly different ever since he came back. And he looks better than he did before. I think this is the best that I've seen him on a stretch of games. How many games has he been back? Probably somewhere between like 5 or 6 games, maybe somewhere right up in that range. I think this is the best 5 or 6 games I've seen in his career, probably since his Boston days. And I might be a little facetious and maybe speaking out of turn on that a little bit. But if that's not the case, then he definitely kind of gives off that feel, that vibe, and that energy. By the way, speaking of energy, shout out to Dwight Howard, because he brought a lot of that as well. Can't believe that I forgot to mention that. But his ability to play make, talking about Rajon Rondo, his ability to, I guess, when you're playing this point guard position, we're talking about prototypical point guard. And that's why I give him a little bit more credit than most people do, because a lot of people, when you talk about his time in Seattle, when you talk about his time in Sacramento, you talk about his time in New Orleans, and people were kind of overlooking him. And I always thought that he still, much like Dwight Howard, still had some of that flair and still had some of that game left in him to where he can contribute to a team that could win. But much like both of those guys, the way it's looked coming over to LA versus other teams is like, not necessarily they weren't giving it their all, but it's hard to take somebody seriously when the teams are not really contending for anything. And I think that that's something that we saw out of both of those players. But in a game right now, like the NBA, where the point guard position is essentially extinct, you have, when I talk about point guards, I'm not talking about Russell Westbrooks and Damian Lillards and, guys like that. I'm talking about point guards, prototypical point, pass first point guards, knowing the strengths, knowing the algebra side of the game, knowing the strengths, knowing the weaknesses of every player on the team, and putting it into a dimensional form on how you breaking down the game, working it from different angles. That's a point guard to me, a floor leader. A guy that has been flying around like crazy ever since he returned back. And he's just looking much better. The court vision, the rarity that it is that you get a point guard like that these days, I think it's crazy. And that position is essentially extinct, like I said. And that prototype is one that is much lost in this particular game, but I'd like to see it come back, and he's certainly doing a good job of fulfilling that need for me. So give some credit to Rajon Rondo as well. The second chance points tonight for the Lakers has been crazy, like outscoring Denver 18-2 in the first half, turning around second in terms of second chance points, that is 20-4, outscoring them by the time at the end of the third through 3 quarters, and then finishing the game 25-6. That was pretty much the game right there. Of course, free throws played a big part of that, and certainly rebounds. Like when you start looking at the Lakers and how they were out rebounded by 19 points in game 3 by a significantly smaller team. Well, not smaller, They were definitely smaller than the Lakers, but I wouldn't say significant. I mean, the Lakers are the biggest team in the NBA. So you have to give some credit to Denver somewhere, who has definitely stepped up their defense. That's another apology that I need to make, because I did say a few times about how Denver being a team that's offensively led, and while they are trying to pack in some of that firepower, some offensive punch, I still think that on the defensive end, they weren't given enough. In these last couple of games, they definitely showed that they were improving. I'm curious to know. Hit me up on social media on Twitter at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS, hashtag where basketball lives, streaming live on the IG as well as on Facebook and on YouTube as well. But hit me up on the social media. Which one have you been more impressed with in the playoffs? Denver's defense or James Harden's defense? Clearly, it wasn't enough. One, it wasn't enough for the last series. This one, it wasn't enough for this series. But James Harden stepping up. I mean, those were two big wow moments for me in just watching these playoffs, because I'm a defensive guy. I grew up in Michigan. I like Sparty. I like that Tom Izzo flair. That's just one thing I've just always embraced. That's just one thing I always loved, was defense. Like that's critical. That's a critical role to play. Somebody who embraces it, even if you're not good at it, but just it's about effort. Not a whole lot of technique. Yeah, there's some you got to move your feet and beat a guy to the spot, but I like defensive guys. And so, which one has been a little bit more impressive to you? James Harden's defense in the playoffs or the Denver Nuggets defense in the playoffs? So just kind of want to propose that to you guys a little bit. Anthony Davis tonight scored the team's first 14 points on field goals converted. Congrats to him. 34 points for him tonight. 5 rebounds. Yeah, 5 rebounds in his 6th NBA playoff game of scoring 30-plus points. So obviously that's something that's, really big for him. And shocker, midway through the 4th quarter, he gets hurt, ankle injury. One of the reasons why I tell people all the time, I just came on a buddy of mine's show, Jack Ebling, the other day on Tuesday. Check me on him. Check me on his show rather at 4:00 every Tuesday. But I say that to say that I said that Anthony Davis is a top 20 player in this NBA. I just don't feel like he's necessarily a top 10 player. You agree, disagree? Hit me up on the social. But he's not in my top 10. I'm not going to say from a skill set standpoint, he's just not in my top 10. I'm not feeling it. And I got to see a little bit more from a consistency standpoint of staying off the IR. And that's something that he hasn't been able to do. And I guess he showed some heart tonight by coming back after his ankle injury and twisting that ankle up. He usually goes off hobbling to the sideline and, take his shoe off, take his sock off and ice it up real good and put it in the ice bath and all that cool, cute little stuff. But this is NBA basketball and you got to play through that. And that's something that I always felt like he could do. And I'm glad that he's on the team with LeBron James for the only reason, because I'm not big on guys trying to team together and build a super team. But I'm glad that he's on this team with with LeBron James, because of the fact that LeBron is going to hold you accountable. And he's doing that for multiple players on this team. He's doing it for Dwight. He's doing it for JaVale. He's doing it to Kuzma. He's doing it to Rondo. He's doing it to Caruso. He's doing it to who am I missing? I feel like I'm missing somebody. He ain't doing it to Danny Green nearly enough, that's for sure. But outside of that, he does that. And that's something that you got to give him some credit for. And obviously Anthony Davis is glad. I'm glad to see him go back out there, because I don't want no excuses when a team loses somewhere down the line. By the way, I got the Lakers winning this whole thing for the sake of Kobe Bryant and his unfortunate death. But last thing I want to hear is, we didn't have Anthony Davis and we didn't have this dude and that dude. I get tired of hearing that stuff after a while, man. So I'm glad that he's healthy enough to come back and play. But I'm curious to know what kind of adjustments that Denver is going to be able to make and that they have to make, because we know that they are on their 3rd consecutive series, being down 3-1. They missed the last 5 field goals in tonight's game and went scoreless in the last, 3-4 minutes, 3.5 minutes or something like that. That's got to change if they want to come away with victories. This is the 2nd or 3rd game, somewhere right up in that range, where they had a team on the ropes and had an opportunity to win, a chance to win. They couldn't do it. That tells me that they're not going to do that in this series. They're not going to come back 3-1. So for any of you who've been keeping your fingers crossed, toes crossed, eyes crossed, everything's crossed that they're going to come back and win this series. That's just something that's not going to happen. I think that you know it. I know it as well. You on Instagram know it. You on Facebook knows it. You on YouTube knows it. And the Denver Nuggets, if I'm being quite honest, they know it. And because the Lakers know it is why I believe that they're going to go ahead and take care of business. And I really believe that either way, win, lose, or draw, this was going to be a game that was going to be Denver's last win, a realistic opportunity at winning this game. I'm not going to give them a chance to win another game. And I think that this is where it ends at in 5 games. And it's very likely that Miami could very well go off and do the exact same thing against Boston and set LeBron up for an opportunity to get his 4th ring. Give him an opportunity to get his 4th ring, and even more so, do it in the fashion that only LeBron James can, and try and keep all the haters off of his back. So I think that's the way that that's going to go down at the end of the day. However, continuing on with the Los Angeles Lakers, I'm curious to know something. I was paying very close attention to this because I don't think that this is a game that had to be nearly as close as it was. Why was Anthony Davis and LeBron James riding the oak for such a long period of time throughout the duration of this game? And I kind of fought Frank Vogel for that because they didn't have to be on the ropes. This didn't have to be a close game. That didn't have to happen. And unfortunately, it did. But I just feel like that was a bad move. You know, you don't take your foot off the gas. You don't put both of those guys on the pine at the same time. Somebody's got to lead this offense. If you know good and well that this is a team that has a difficult time with finding a consistent third leading scorer, you don't put both of those guys on the bench knowing exactly what it is that Denver is capable of. Like, for me, that's something that I just don't think really made a whole lot of sense. And so I don't think that they can do that in the next game. I think they'll still be just fine and they'll win the game, but I don't think that that's something that they can do. Another thing, I had a little bit of a gripe, but then I kind of felt like I wanted to take it back, talking about LeBron. Sometimes, and much in this game, and I've seen it a couple of times in this series and previous series, he seems to kind of lack. He kind of seems to lack that aggression a little bit sometimes. Now, what I will give him credit for, and I don't really feel like I should have to give him credit, but I will give those LeBron fans who, I'm not a LeBron lover, I'm not a LeBron hater. I could just appreciate what LeBron has done for this game. He accepted the challenge to defend Jamal Murray down the stretch in a very clutch situation, knowing what Jamal Murray and the Nuggets were capable of. However, does he really deserve credit for that? Because, like, if you're the best player in this league, if people try to put all kinds of players, above you, people now trying to put, Kawhi Leonard in front of you and Greek Freak in front of you. And in a minute, they're going to be talking about putting Luka in front of you and all these other players. But you're getting all this credit, or you're getting the credit for defending the best player on the other team when you should be doing that anyway if you're the best player on your team. I sometimes think that he's a little bit too passive aggressive, and I'm not going to say he lacks the ability, but he just doesn't really seem to be very interested in taking over games with urgency when he should. And I don't know, maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit too much, and I'm not trying to, ride his back or anything like that. But I just think that sometimes it would be nice to see that, not just in certain situations. I mean, I feel like they're playing with fire. I'm not sure if the Lakers ever really, really, really feel threatened by Denver at any point throughout this series. However, I would still like to see them put the team away, like for good, like exclamation point, put a stamp on it. And we're not seeing that. And it seems like the later that these series seem to go, it's like that's becoming a trend. And the way Miami is playing, obviously I'm not picking Miami to win the series. I wouldn't be picking Boston to win the series either. But I just don't think that that's something that you can do, especially against a dangerous team like Miami, who it looks like they're going to be playing, that is like riding a wave of confidence that's pretty much at an all-time high. So I just wanted to throw that out there about LeBron because I'm okay with letting LeBron be LeBron and everything like that. I mean, that's cool, but for the category that a lot of other people try and put LeBron in that kind of conversation, I just don't see enough. We got to put these dudes away. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I wanted to see Denver not even win a game. Realistically, could that have happened? I think so. They only won one game, and they're not going to win another one. But winning one game for Denver, I guess that's fine. But I still haven't seen LeBron come on. I mean, they're supposed to be putting this team away by double digits. I mean, I like to think, and I get it's the playoffs and all the possessions slow down. The game slows down, possession by possession, more half-court offense sets and things like that, not as much transition and whatever else. But I just think that if you're that dude, like, you got to put these teams away and all the eyes are on you. You're the face of the franchise. You are the face of this league. And so I'm not impressed by that. However, I think it's a reason to be impressed. 26 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists for him tonight, 7 for 18 from the field. Obviously, that's pretty damn good within its own right. The Lakers, 18-1 when Anthony Davis and LeBron James combined for 60-plus points together. And 36-1 when leading the series 3-1. Now, speaking of 3-1, Denver trails it again. Like I said, the third consecutive series being down 3-1. So trying to find a way to cut that deficit. Nikola Jokic, rough. You know what? Not even rough fourth quarter tonight. Rough fourth quarter for him in game 3 and game 4. 0 points, 0 for 5 from the field. That's just not a good look. This guy who scores 30 points tonight for his 30th playoff game as well, being Jamal Murray, sixth 30-point playoff game. Jamal Murray can't do this thing all by himself. And I'm not saying that Jokic doesn't add any help to that, because when you look at this series, I mean, I really believe that dude is being just like, he's outnumbered from a size standpoint. He's going against guys that are quicker, faster, stronger, more athletic, more aggressive. And that finesse way and really being limited to how much your lateral movement and things like that, when you're going up against Dwight and JaVale and, Morris and all these guys, it's gonna put a lot on you, especially coming off of, 3 back-to-back, 3-1, being down 3-1 series and then trying to come back and win. So obviously that doesn't really help out a whole lot. I was curious to know who was working a little bit more for their on defense and for their baskets. It appeared to me tonight that on defense, by far, I still like to think that Denver did a better job defensively. Whose baskets was coming easier for them? I don't know. I feel like that was a 50-50. I feel like both of them were finding a way, and this is a credit to, I guess, Frank Vogel and Michael Malone, of the adjustments made and just their ability to find ways for their guys to conserve energy. Michael Porter Jr. was good tonight, obviously, as well. And Jeremy Grant, who I think is arguably the most underappreciated guy on this team and maybe even in this series. When you start talking about the effort that he puts forth, and that within itself is effortless effort, if that makes any kind of sense at all. His work ethic is like second to none and spoken for. And I just love fearless players. And that's just one that he appears to be to me. So I want to give him some credit for that. But 50-50 on whose baskets were coming easier for them. And that's just really a lot of credit to the coach. But this is a Denver team that's not going to go away. I love their response. I love how they're relentless. They know how to counterpunch, and they always find a way to stay in reach of actually being able to win the game. And it tells me that if they weren't playing the Lakers, for a very good reason, that they have a realistic chance at winning this thing and going to the finals. But unfortunately, you're running into the Lakers and a guy who, if not known, is about to be known from keeping guys from winning world championships, and that guy is LeBron James. I'm not saying he keeps everybody from winning world championships, because there's a group of really light-skinned guys out there on the West Coast that are wearing blue and yellow uniforms who aren't playing in the playoffs, and that's a rarity within its own. But he hasn't kept those guys from winning NBA championships. But this Denver Nuggets team will be one of those teams that you can add to that list. But as long as they're able to hang around, this talking about the Denver Nuggets, they always give themselves a chance, and I love that about them. They're about to see their way out the door real soon, but I do want to give some credit to that, because that's not an easy thing to do. When you know you're going up against the Lakers, you played 2 back-to-backs of 3, being down 3-1 series and won them, and now you're going into another one, and you're able to keep games close and within reach. I'm not sure how much appreciation NBA fans and just the casual basketball fan really has for that particular type of team that can do that. In closing, what I definitely want to say, and I'm always one that loves to give the people an opportunity for their voice to be heard, and get some mentions for those that are supporting the podcast that I am really, really thankful for. I know I probably say it over and over and can't find all the perfect words, but a few people are very consistent, persistent, and I appreciate those of you who kind of keep going forward and pushing this brand, because you're doing a very good job at helping a young man's dreams essentially come true with it. So I always like to give the people an opportunity for their voices to be heard and be a part of the show. So let me go ahead and do that, as I like to relatively often. D'Anthony Ford checked in with us on the night with the final buzzer, saying playoff Rondo is giving them that spark, especially when LeBron needs a breather. And he definitely does that, because without him, LeBron is definitely the primary ball handler and do everything for this team from that aspect, and from many other aspects as well. And he's not getting a lot out of a few of those shooters. And you got Rondo knocking down some shots. He knows a few things about playing with not only superstar caliber and elite players in this league, but also NBA champions and Hall of Fame players as well. So I appreciate D'Anthony Ford, man, for checking in with the homie. Will Witherspoon, what up, Pops? Appreciate you for checking in on Facebook as well. So I didn't like all the crying for the cause and then getting them by the Lakers. Had to be a huge free throw discrepancy. And you know what? Pops is absolutely correct, because I'm hearing a whole lot of talk about how the Lakers went to the NBA and was complaining about how LeBron isn't getting calls and how the Lakers aren't getting calls. And there's a significant difference in the calls tonight, ironically enough, than it was in the previous games in this particular series anyways. And not only that, but go figure, if you want to know how that worked out for LA tonight, how about they converted on more free throws than Denver attempted? So it seemed to kind of have worked in their favor, and I'm just not really a big fan of that. So I gotta agree with Pops. Will Witherspoon, appreciate you for checking out the show, as I know you do all the time. D-Boy, what's popping, boy? Man, probably my most consistent dude that has chimed in with me here on the final buzzer recap, saying Denver has the heart to fight, but they needed this one. And this ain't the only one I felt like they needed. I felt like they needed the last 3, because they had it right there in their hands. Tonight, a few nights ago, game 3, game 2, like they were right there. They had those opportunities square in their hands and just could not finish. And it's not an excuse, but I mean, these guys got to be dead tired. I mean, they've given it their all. They've overcome adversity. They've done so much that they don't have a reason to hang their head after they get up out of here in a couple nights. Also, D Boyd also saying that Miami will close out the next game. We're going to see. It looks like that's the way it's going to go. Will be really interesting to see both of these teams between the Lakers and the overly crazy confident Miami Heat, who has without a doubt been the most impressive team by far in the NBA playoffs. Both of them meet up in the NBA Finals after a 4-1 closeout on the series. I think that one will be good because Miami is not Denver. They're going to come with some defense, and they got some offense too. And this boy named Tyler Hero, that dude is a real problem. That dude is a serious problem. So just wanted to make sure that my dude Milt, I don't know what he said he agreed on, but he's a smart guy. Why? Because he agreed with me tonight. Appreciate you, Milt. I know Milt for a minute, man, and I'm glad that he had the opportunity to chime in with us tonight as well. So overly thankful, grateful, appreciative of you and whoever that is of you that's kind of been keeping me in your prayers and whatnot, watching the stream, watching on as we stream on Facebook, streaming on YouTube. I see you up there, IG, streaming live on IG as well. Appreciate the love and for you spreading the word, telling your mama, telling your grandmama, telling your aunties, telling your uncles, telling your cousins, telling your family, telling your friends, telling your enemies, telling everybody about Tate's Take the podcast. You can find it anywhere you find your favorite podcast. That being iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Red Circle, the whole nine, streaming live on YouTube, streaming live on IG. Also, as you know, I like to call it the best, the most educational, the most informational basketball content in the form of a podcast, being Tate's Take. So if you don't have an iPhone, but you got an Android, if you don't have an Android, but you got an iPhone, you can always subscribe. And even to those who are not only watching live and sharing this, but also to those who will do so in the future. You wake up tomorrow morning, maybe you couldn't watch it live tonight on any of the platforms and so forth, and had to, maybe put the kids to bed and give them a bath and, help them with the homework and the visual learning and cook dinner and all that good stuff. But you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and peep this. We provide you with all of that every single night after the playoff games conclude, 15, 20 minutes roughly after the game. And I appreciate everybody for doing that. And I got to throw this last one out here because my boy be on fire right now. D-Boy. Keep doing an amazing job. The show is great. It's definitely giving me knowledge. I'm learning. It's a blessing, an honor to support. My brother, you don't even understand the half. I really appreciate you more than you know, and I appreciate all of you. You, everybody, for making sure that you're going and subscribing. I can't force it and press the issue enough. Please go and subscribe. We can always use more subscribers and being a part of the show and just sharing along with people. And I know that there's people supporting and listening behind the scenes and on the back end that maybe don't necessarily say anything. I see you out there, and I appreciate you for your blessings. Appreciate you for your prayers. We got another one coming up tomorrow. Look like Miami probably about to close this thing out in a day or two. So be looking forward to the recap after that particular game. And who knows? After one more game, we might have a team going on to the NBA Finals. So we'll see. Appreciate everybody for checking me out tonight. And I'll catch y'all in a minute.